I read 11 books in October, and what if I told you every single one is worth your time? Hello, book friends. I'm Jen, and this might be my best reading month of the year. From middle grade magic to Victorian standouts, I'm sharing what made October special, and you're going to want to add these to your piles of possibility. Now, these books aren't in reading order. I'm going to go through these from the ones that I enjoyed all the way up through the 2 books that have made it onto my all-time favorites list. And let us start off with a classic mystery by an author I now want to read much more of. My first book today is a classic British mystery by an author I've never read before, but I'm definitely going to be reading more by her in the future, and that is Death of an Author by E.C.R. Lorac. This was republished by the British Library Crime Classics. It is a mystery from the 1930s. And in this, we are following along with a young woman who claims that her reclusive author boss has gone missing and something has happened to him. There are questions about whether this person actually exists. No one has ever met him, and the police are on the case to find out, is this young woman lying to them? Is she really the author and there isn't somebody who's missing? What is going on? I reviewed this exclusively for my Book Jennies on Patreon. So while I'm going to tell you that I did enjoy this and it has made me want to read more E.C.R. Lorac, if you want a more in-depth review, you'll have to join the Book Jennies. You can always join my Patreon. I will link it here and it is always in the description box below if you'd like to join our cozy bookish community over there. Next up is a Gothic novel, and this is by an author I've never read before, but I will definitely be reading more of her. And again, this was another book. This was actually the group read for my Book Jennies Patreon group for October. Starting it off strong with the Book Jennies, and that book that we read was Mistress of Melon by Victoria Holt. This is very classically Gothic. It has Jane Eyre and Rebecca vibes. So if those are books that you enjoy, I definitely think you would like this one. We had a really wonderful discussion of this. Lots of fun elements to this book. We are following a young governess, and of course she has gone to this remote home where she is taking care of a young girl, and there's something a little bit mysterious about the father, and the mother has passed away, and there seem to be secrets and all kinds of Gothic, wonderful, kind of creepy, but not too creepy, just like a little bit what is going on here, elements to this with some wonderful characters. And I very much enjoyed my first Victoria Holt, and it certainly won't be my last. Now we are switching gears, and I read a middle grade book that was perfect for October, and that was Jennifer Hecate Macbeth, William McKinley, and Me, Elizabeth by E.L. Konigsberg. And I picked this up because I absolutely love From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil Frankweiler by E.L. Konigsberg, one of my favorite books when I was a kid, still is today. And of course, this book has my name in the title, so how could I not read this? The cover is orange. It very much felt like the perfect book to read in October. It actually starts on Halloween, so it is very much a great autumnal read. And in this, we follow Elizabeth, and she one day while walking to school on Halloween meets Jennifer. And Jennifer she marches to the beat of her own drummer, and she's got a little bit of witchy vibes. So there's a little bit of that going on, and the girls become friends outside of school, but not really at school. And we just follow along with what goes on between these 2 girls. From Elizabeth's point of view, they are in the 5th grade, and I just thought this was so much fun. It was perfect autumnal reading, and I read it in just a couple of days. Very, very quick read, but if you're looking for something to pick up next October, I would definitely recommend this one. Next up is a historical fiction. This is a new release that just came out this year, and I had gifted this to my mom for her birthday. She read it and she passed it along to me to read, and I very much enjoyed it. And that is The Eights by Joanna Miller. And in this, we're following a group of 4 women who are a part of the first official graduating class of one of the Oxford women's colleges. Women at Oxford were not allowed to receive degrees, even though they could attend Oxford before 1920. And so we follow along with these fictionalized characters and what happens to them over the course of the school year. Each of them has a secret, and yet their close proximity to one another forms a bond between the four of them, and that is really lovely. I loved the Oxford setting of this. I loved how we got to see inside these women's lives and what it would really have been like to be a part of that class where, if you met at Oxford, did not want them to be there. And the bonds that they form with one another and what they go through and how they learn about each other and come to accept all their differences and all their uniquenesses. I really, really enjoyed this. I definitely recommend this if you like historical fiction, and I am very, very picky about my historical fiction. Give The Eights a read. Next up is a book that I read with my Gilded Age buddy read group, and for October we picked something that seemed seasonally appropriate. This isn't a Gilded Age book, but we read The Ghost and Mrs. Muir by Josephine Leslie, and this is what it says in the title. There's a very famous movie called The Ghost of Mrs. Muir with Rex Harrison. I haven't watched it yet, but my Gilded Age buddy read friends and I have plans to do a group watch of the movie, so that will be coming. In this, we follow Lucy Muir, and her husband has recently passed away, and she has left his family, whom they had been living with, who were very domineering over Lucy, and she has decided to rent this cottage, which, when she goes to look at it, the real estate agent really tries to dissuade her from renting it because it is supposed to be haunted. And yet she is determined to live there and bring her two children, and she does so. And yes, it is haunted by the ghost of Captain Greg, and he is a quite salty sea captain, and we follow along over the course of quite a few years, their relationship and what happens, and I just thought this was so much fun. It was very evocative of a certain period in time, that sort of 1960s, a little bit of that kind of romantic suspense, a little bit along the lines of Mary Stuart, though not really. This has its own feel to it, but books of that era, this definitely fits in amongst them. And I read through this so quickly. I couldn't put it down, and I just thought it was just really, really fun. I know that my friends in the group who have seen the movie and hadn't read the book still say they prefer the movie over the book, but since I haven't seen the movie yet, I'm going to say I really, really enjoyed this book, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the movie, and I will have to let you know if that changes my opinion of the book, but hopefully I can separate the two enough and the book can stand on its own, as can the movie. But very excited to watch the adaptation now that I've read this fun little ghost story. Next up is another middle grade, and this is the fourth book in a series that I love, and I listened to this on audio, and that book is Silverborn, The Mystery of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I love the Morrigan Crow series. It is so much fun. If you like middle grade fantasy type books along the lines of Harry Potter and those types of books, then I highly recommend giving Morrigan Crow a try if you have not yet. It took a very long time for Jessica to write book 4 after book 3 came out quite a few years ago, and we have all been waiting for her to put this book out, and it's finally here. It's been out for a little while. It came out earlier this year. I will say that I do wish I had gone back and reread book 3 before I started book 4, because it did take me a little bit to get reacquainted with who all the characters were and their relationships to Morrigan and kind of center myself in the story. But once I could not put this down. I was just constantly listening to it over the course of a few days. Every spare moment that I had, I was invested in it, and now I'm ready for book 5. So hopefully we won't have to wait quite as long for book 5 as for book 4, but we shall see. But if you've never read Morrigan Crow, definitely read this series in order. It's wonderful. And my next book, and this book is probably one of the books that has been sitting on my unread shelf for the longest. I have had this book well over a decade. I am so glad I finally read this. I put this on my bedside table and I read from it every night before bed, and I loved it. Let me show you what it is. And that is Among the Shadows by L.M. Montgomery. Yes, L.M. Montgomery of Anne of Green Gables fame. And these are Tales from the Darker Side, 19 newly discovered stories. Now, unfortunately, this book is out of print, and I found this, like I said, over a decade ago on the clearance cart at Half Price Books. I believe I got this for $1 or maybe $2. Never read it. It sat on my shelf. Every autumn, I would pull it off and say I was going to read it, and I never did. And I finally did. And I enjoyed the stories in this collection so much. Now, just like with any short story collection, I think there are definitely some stories that I enjoyed more than others, but there wasn't a single dud in this collection. I will say that probably my favorite story is the longest story in the collection. It's called Some Fools and a Saint, and I was just completely sucked in by that story, though there were so many good ones in here. If you are an L.M. Montgomery fan and you'd like to see a slightly different side to her, you can see some of the germs of Anne and Emily in some of the female characters in these stories, but they definitely have a darker twist to them. None of them are scary. None of them are, I mean, they're just even barely on the kind of spooky side, but they were really perfect for October reading. And if you can get your hand on a secondhand copy of this book, then I highly recommend picking it up. Next up is another mystery. This is another book in a series. This is actually also number 4 in that series, and I listened to it on audiobook, and that book is The Unquiet Grave by Dervla McTiernan, and this is the 4th book in the Cormac Riley mystery series by Dervla McTiernan, and this is set in Ireland, and I'm not even sure what to tell you about this story. I think really all I can say is that there is a body that is found in a bog. Sometimes in Irish bogs, bodies will be found that actually have been preserved, but they might be hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And so at first they're not sure if maybe this is an archaeological discovery. Turns out it's not. It's a fairly recent murder within the past 6 or 9 months, I believe, and we kind of follow along as the story unfolds from there. There are lots of disparate plot lines in this, and one of the things I think Dervla McTiernan is really good at is weaving all of those stories together and connecting them in a way that feels really natural and really plausible, and I was completely riveted by this story. I love Cormac Riley. I talked about him in my first mystery series video that I did in late September. I will link that here and in the description box if you haven't seen it yet and you want to check it out. I definitely think you should read this series in order. There are only 4 books. They are a little bit hard to get a hold of. Dervla McTiernan is an Australian author, so if you are in the United States, you might have some difficulty tracking some of them down, though I do think most of them are on ebook. I was able to find The Unquiet Grave on audiobook, but I think it is well worth your time if you are able to track them down because she's a fantastic mystery author. I cannot wait for more in this series. I hope there's going to be more in this series, but either way, definitely pick up Cormac Riley, and this latest entry was fantastic. And now we are getting down to the 3 Victorian novels that I read for Victober this year, and all of them were wonderful. And the first, actually, I'm going to talk about 2 books together because they are bound in the same volume. And those are The Semi-Attached Couple and The Semi-Detached House by Emily Eden. And we read The Semi-Attached Couple for the Cozy Reader Book Club in October, and we had a really wonderful discussion about it. And I will say that The Semi-Attached Couple felt very much like a Jane Austen novel to me. So if you enjoy Jane Austen, I would give The Semi-Attached Couple a try. I will say probably our biggest quibble with the book is that there are a lot of characters to keep track of, and a character list would have been very handy at the beginning of this because there are characters who have very similar names and sometimes it was hard to keep them straight, but I really enjoyed the story. Our two main characters are Helen and Lord Teviot, and they get married very early on in the book, and there's a lot of miscommunication going on between the two of them that causes a rift in their marriage. And then there are a lot of people who get kind of involved and between them, and we follow along to see what happens to them. And I really, really enjoyed this. Not everybody in the Cozy Reader Book Club loved this. I think some people just liked it okay. There were a few of us that really enjoyed it. And while it's not a perfect book, like I said, it was hard to keep track of all of the characters. I very much enjoyed this, and I knew I wanted to go straight on and read The Semi-Detached House. And I'm so glad that I did, because I loved it even more than The Semi-Attached Couple. It's very funny. It's quite a bit shorter. There are a lot less characters in The Semi-Detached House. I would actually recommend, if you're interested in these two books, read The Semi-Detached House first. I think it is brilliant. I think that's all I can say about it. It was just brilliant. I laughed so much. And in The Semi-Detached House, we follow another newly married young woman, and she is actually renting this semi-detached house because her husband has to go off overseas, and so he's going to be gone. So she's going to stay in this house with her sister, and their aunt is nearby, and she is pregnant, the wife is, and so we just kind of follow along with the neighbors that live next door to her, who are not of her same social standing, and they're a wonderful family. I love the mother and I love the daughters in that family. I just thought the characters in that story were so fun, so funny, and it was just pure delight to read it. And again, I couldn't put it down. I just whipped through it. It's quite a bit shorter than The Semi-Attached Couple. And if you've read that and you weren't sure about The Semi-Detached House, I would say please give it a go. It's very different and it's got a much different tone to it. But it was just, oh, I loved it. 5 stars. 5 very, very big, hearty stars. And if you couldn't tell, that book, new all-time favorite. Definitely new all-time favorite Victorian novel. And next up is another new all-time favorite book, all-time favorite Victorian novel. I am so glad that I finally read this. You all picked it for me to read, and you were right. And the book that I read and absolutely loved, was my favorite of the month, was North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. You all were right. I'm so glad that you voted for this book and that you picked it as my Victorian book to read in October. I loved it so very much. Elizabeth Gaskell, she's just wonderful, isn't she? In this, we follow Margaret Hale. She is the daughter of a vicar who, for reasons you come to understand, gives up his living as a vicar, and they have to move out of the town where they've lived for a very, very long time and to a more industrial area in England. And he takes up work sort of as a tutor, and one of the people he's tutoring is this Mr. Thornton, who runs one of the, I think it's a mill. Is it a mill? In the town. And Mr. Thornton is not of the same social standing as Margaret and her family. You know, he was sort of brought up through the working class, even though he now owns this company and has quite a bit of money. And he and Margaret butt heads. I think we can kind of know where that might go. And this book really delves into the class divides in England and things I think they still struggle with to a degree still today. And I just was completely immersed. I listened to the audiobook read by Juliet Stevenson, who is the best. My very favorite audiobook narrator. She's wonderful. And she just brought the story to life for me. And I have seen the BBC miniseries of North and South, and I absolutely loved it when it first came out. And I'm excited to watch it again now that I've read the book. I thought this was so well done. And while it's really dealing with some very big social issues, I think at the heart of it, because it's ultimately a love story, is that Margaret Hale is such an interesting and dynamic main character. And I just really was drawn in by her, and that really helped propel the story along. I didn't always agree with her thoughts, her opinions, or her actions, but I really appreciated what Elizabeth Gaskell was doing with her and pitting her against this man of a different social standing, and kind of how they work through that, how they learn to see each other. I mean, there are definitely allusions to Pride and Prejudice in this book, and I thought it was fantastic, as you can tell. I think that's enough gushing about North and South. I had a really good reading month, which is hard to believe because October was a whirlwind. My Octobers always are very busy. We have a lot of celebrations in our family in October, and it's just a very busy month of the year. But I feel like my reading life went so well this October, and I'm so happy to have read all of these books. They all enhanced my reading life. I would love to chat with you down in the comments. Have you read any of these books? Or now that you've heard me talk about them, are any of them being added to either your TBR, your pile of possibilities, your want to read shelf? Let us chat about October reading in the comments, and share with me what was the best book you read in October. I would love to hear that. And if you're here but you don't have anything that you'd like to add, why don't we do one last round of spooky, October-y, Halloween-esque emojis in the comments? If you could leave those, comments really do help my channel, and I so love seeing that you were here. And let's spookify the comments section one last time. And another thing that really helps my channel is if you could hit that like button and subscribe if you aren't already subscribed. I would love to have you join my bookish community. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for all of your lovely comments on my recent videos. I do so love chatting with you down in the comments. I'm doing my best to catch up on all of the comments because there have been so many. It's also lovely to see you all chatting amongst yourselves and making connections there as well. So thank you for being here and taking time out of your day to spend it with me here in my cozy corner of BookTube. And I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye!